Dead No More, Patient Zero, Chapter 3, All Hell Breaks Loose. What have I done? Who could I tell? The implications of this application are limitless, but this could be a species ender if not handled properly. Wait, what am I thinking? This has to be curbed and destroyed. I called the CDC and reported what I had discovered. I couldn't bring myself to tell them of the cloud at the crematorium, but did provide the specifics of the burning of Trixie, Dixie, and Jerry in the lab and how it affected Mrs. Frisbee. I never once mentioned Charles, but I did explain to them about M and the orderlies and how we had them under quarantine. They wanted M and the orderlies transported to the CDC. Arrangements were made, and the transport was scheduled. On the morning of October 31st, 2010, the world went to hell in a handbasket. It was befitting that it was Halloween due to the horrors that unfolded. When I think back, was it T's advice or the knowledge that I possessed that made me start preparations for the bunker? At 10:34 a.m., an emergency team brought in a little girl named Amy Washington. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old. She was the victim of a hit-and-run driver. She had on a little pink fairy princess costume. She died on arrival. At 10:46 a.m., an emergency team brought in a young man named DeAndre Thomas. He was the victim of a gang-related shooting. He was approximately 17 years old, and he died on arrival. At 10:55 a.m., an emergency team brought in Raphael Jones. He was choked unconscious during a traffic stop by a sheriff's deputy in Athens, Georgia. He had a crushed larynx and died at the scene. At 11:12 a.m., emergency crews brought in Archibald Jenkins, Terry Donnelly, Roscoe Bullard, Lisa Maloney, and Eva Maloney, all dead in a multi-car pileup. At 11:48 a.m., they all reanimated, and the hospital went to shit, with the biting, scratching, and the attacks. It was at this time that a military transport team had arrived for M and the orderlies, but due to the chaos and confusion, they got loose. The soldiers began to shoot the infected with little to no effect. One of the orderlies yelled, "You have to shoot them in the head." As the soldiers began to mistakenly shoot the uninfected as well, Harrison Memorial Hospital became a bloodbath, and as each person was mowed down, they reanimated. The order came in to eradicate Harrison Memorial Hospital. But before that could happen, some of those bitten escaped. I knew then that this marked the beginning of the end. I drove home and gathered my mom and called T. We all headed to the bunker. The bunker was a structure I had built with an air and water filtration system 25 feet underground, just outside of Atlanta. The water poured in from a private, unmapped well that was fed by the Chattahoochee River. It took almost all of my considerable fortune to construct and stock in the time allotted. But what good is money during the apocalypse? Above us was my nondescript farmhouse that looks abandoned, with nothing growing and no supplies. I owned all 180 acres. I stocked it with enough food and weapons for 100 people for 10 years. In truth, it was more of a small city than anything else. It is powered by 4 wind turbine windmills and solar panels on the farm above. I stocked extra solar panels in case of damage to the originals. It cost hundreds of millions of dollars, but it was well worth it. I figured in order to ride this out, I'd need more than just my mom, T, and I. I would only invite those who could contribute and could help rebuild society if necessary. The key would be to remain secret and undetected. To populate the bunker would be tricky. I had to choose people who were competent in their abilities, but who would not upset the delicate balance of our burgeoning group of survivors. I gathered an electrician, a plumber, a mechanic, a hunter, a self-defense instructor, a farmer, a few other childhood friends, and quite a few of the contractors who worked on the structure. Each was allowed to bring not more than 3 non-contributors: spouses, children, parents, or lovers. One guy wanted to bring his dog, but I wouldn't allow it. The barking would attract too much attention from both the living and the dead. Our fledgling little community was beginning to take shape. The fact that we also scored an engineer and architect was a bonus. Our hunter also knew how to cast ammo, and the self-defense instructor began to teach classes on how to strike the DCs, short for deceased or dead carcasses as they became known. Weapons training was a must. We used air rifles for training so as not to waste the ammo unnecessarily. Hand-to-hand became crucial as we foresaw that quiet defense would be necessary. Also, we would eventually run low on ammo one day. As society continued to break down, we had to implement rules. Some were tougher than others, but all were fair. Secrecy was paramount above all else. No exceptions. We went on raids to the stores and abandoned homes for gear. We got some flame-retardant suits from the fire department, and our engineer and electrician whipped us up some flamethrowers. We also picked up some swords, machetes, axes, hatchets, spears, a few compound bows, and some crossbows from the sporting goods section of the department store. I explained to our group that the DCs could only be killed by destroying the cerebral cortex. Our raiders, the group that went out in search of supplies, were quick and efficient. I was beginning to get a little concerned as our community was growing too quickly. As the group added more and more people, more and more opinions came with them. As I read over this journal and my account of how all this started, I realized that this is just the beginning, and things are about to get a lot worse. I've began to notice that the humanity of the group is devolving. They are becoming more animalistic in their zeal to survive. I heard that one of the potential raiders shot a living man because he needed to protect what he had. I thought Jacob was a good man, but we had to let him go. Thankfully, we had yet to reveal the location of the bunker to him. He and his daughter were headed to another settlement set up about 50 miles away. As one of the last ones in one of the last groups, the location of the bunker was kept secret, as new members are blindfolded, going in and out. He would never find his way back here unaided. While out on our last raid, we ran into a man and his son. I attempted to get him to talk to me, but he was too distraught. I think he had just lost someone. He was inconsolable, and we can't have someone like that in our community. For now, we'll have to be content with who we have and make do. It has only been 4 months, and already society is defunct. Marauders are filling the streets, and dogs are beginning to run in packs. The dead are taking over little by little. If I could, I would take in everyone that we encountered, but we are struggling as it is with the supplies we have. To avoid and ignore someone who needs my help is one of the many crosses I will have to bear for causing the end of the world.